Welcome. I'm really glad you're here. As Heather said, I work with the Career Center. Prior to coming to the Career Center, I was a banker and did a lot of reviewing resumes and hiring. So that's a little bit of my background. So we're going to talk about optimizing your resume using ChatGPT. And so let's get started. The very first thing I like to start with is our diversity statement. And the reason I like to start with that is because I want to make sure that every one of you knows that you deserve a seat at this table and that you're valuable, your input is valuable, your perspective is valuable. And so just know if you're here today, we're really glad you're here, no matter what your background is, what you believe, you are welcome at this table. We're glad you're here. So let's dive into our topic. So we're here today because artificial intelligence, or AI for short, is really changing the way we work and how we get jobs, and even how you interact at school. And the Michelin Career Center is committed to helping deliver the #1 student experience in the nation. And one way that we do that is help you be ready in a competitive and changing job market. So we use our research and resources to provide you with the strategies that'll help you maximize the success of your job search or graduate school application process. And not just the tools and the resources, but also we provide the support. When things change really rapidly, sometimes that can make some of us feel anxious or unsure about how to proceed. And so we just want you to know that we're here to support you in this journey and in this process. So, I would love to get some feedback from you before we start this presentation. So if you don't mind dropping your confidence in your resume in the chat, rate it from 1 to 5. 1, it's not very good. 2, it's okay. 3, 4, 5. 5 if you think it's awesome. And if you don't want everybody to see it, you can click on the blue everyone and just put it to go to us if you want to send us just a direct message.
So we have some 3s. We have a 2, a 4, another 4. We have 1 5.
Okay.
So a lot of 3s, a lot of right there in the
Awesome.
middles.
That's kind of where I would expect you to be. If you ranked yourself 4 or 5, would you mind dropping back in the chat and letting us know if you've ever worked with the Career Center before, or maybe how you got yourself to a 4 or 5? We'd love to hear a little bit of feedback from you.
Looks like somebody has worked with the Career Center and looked at a lot of sample resumes.
Oh, yeah. There are so many sample resumes out there, and there are so many opinions about how to write a resume. And one of the reasons that we recommend the format and the content that we do is because we've done extensive research, both just on resume writing to begin with, but also on the impact of AI on resumes. So looks like a few people, I'm seeing the chat come through too. Somebody had some trouble with their resume. They got some great tips and tricks. So I'm glad you guys are getting the resources you need. Just know that we are always here to help you with your resumes. All right. So thanks for sharing with that. Now let's talk about, how often do you use ChatGPT? 1 for never, 5 for several times a day, 2, 3, and 4 for somewhere in between. I see. Oh, all right. I'm seeing nevers. What else are you seeing, Heather?
Right now, mostly 2s and 1s.
Okay.
Yep, 2s and 1s.
All right.
Oh, we have a 3 and a 4.
Okay. All right. So based on the feedback I've gotten, we're going to start, let's call this the beginning of a conversation about how to optimize your resume using ChatGPT. For those of you who are more advanced, I'd be happy to connect with you after this webinar as well, but we'll use this really as just kind of a beginner overview. This will be the beginning of the conversation. Come see us in the fall. We'll have more webinars about more details, how to use ChatGPT. Let me start by saying, if you've never used ChatGPT, which we saw a whole bunch of 1s in there, I would encourage you, if you feel comfortable, to go in and just set up an account. Maybe even while I'm talking, you can go to openai.com and click on ChatGPT and set up an account, because I'm going to encourage you, as I'm showing you the steps, to actually try it on your computer as well. Okay. All right. And then for those of you who do use ChatGPT, maybe share with the group what you use it for.
Summarizing lecture notes. Heard that's a great one.
Yeah.
Writing emails, alter raw ideas and thoughts and structure it to make sense. Resume help,
Oh,
cover letters.
oh, somebody's already used it for resume help. Okay, that's great. I love it. Thanks for sharing your feedback. That helps us know kind of where you're coming from and what experiences you've had. Any other feedback?
There's one who's used it as a programming assignment. I have heard of some professors using it as a teaching tool.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing. One of the ways that the Career Center views using ChatGPT is we want to teach you to use it effectively, but we especially want to teach you to use it ethically. And there are plenty of professors who just across the board say you may not use it in this class. So I want to encourage you that even though we're going to teach you how to optimize your resume using ChatGPT, if you're doing a resume for a course and an instructor has told you not to use it, please don't. But it is perfectly acceptable for you to use it as you're optimizing your resume when you're applying for jobs or internships or things like that. So just want to give that disclaimer. It's important to use it effectively, but it's super important to use it ethically. So let's just talk a little bit about what a resume is. So, resume is a formal document that's going to outline your education, experience, skills, and accomplishments, and it's used to obtain employment or admission to grad school. So, in back when I was your age, the recipients for resumes included recruiters, hiring managers, and others who worked maybe with the position that was being hired for. But now, with the onset of AI or the ramping up of AI, there's something called ATS, or applicant tracking systems. And typically, before a recruiter or a hiring manager or anybody else ever sees your resume, 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using applicant tracking systems to review your resume and compare it to the job description to see if you're a good fit. And what that means is, rather than a human being reading your resume first, very often it's AI. And there are specific things that you can do to get your resume AI friendly. The good news is, many of the things that we recommend that you do to make your resume AI friendly, you're already doing if you follow our recommendations for resumes to begin with. So, let me get just a quick poll. How do you all feel about AI reviewing your resume before a human being does?
Hate that.
Mm,
Skeptical.
okay. Those are really understandable responses. And one of the reasons that many companies use AI is that the typical recruiter can receive up to 10,000 applications for one job. And that there's just no way humanly possible that anybody could review 10,000 applications for one job. Now, those are large recruiters at large companies. And companies have actually been using AI for many, many years to pre-screen job applications and resumes, but it's just gotten more advanced and more common for companies to use it. And so when you think about companies using it, it's not that they don't care about you. It's not that they don't care about a human being reviewing the application. It's just that it's not humanly possible to review all those. So there's some good reasons for using applicant tracking systems, but I understand that feeling of I really hate this. I feel skeptical of it. Hopefully today we're going to demystify the process a little bit and maybe the why behind companies using it, that'll help you feel a little more comfortable. And it really is okay if you're skeptical or you hate it. That's an understandable feeling. But I'm glad you're here today, that you were willing to even come to the webinar. So let's think about in this process, who's reviewing the resume. So typically an applicant tracking system is going to see your resume first. So we need to optimize it to make it through that initial screening. And in general, the way applicant tracking systems work is they score your resume against the job description, which means you really need to tailor your resume to job descriptions. Now, I understand that for some of you, you're like, I applied for 100 jobs. I can't write 100 job descriptions. Well, again, that's where ChatGPT or some other large language model can help you tailor your resume and embed some of those keywords that are found in job descriptions. Once a resume goes through an applicant tracking system and receives a score above a certain threshold, then it's forwarded on to a recruiter or the hiring manager. And so then you have your first human being interacting with your resume. How long, measured in seconds, do you think that initial screening of a resume is? Just take a guess in the chat. How many seconds do you think that initial screening is?
10.
10 seconds, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
10-sec question mark.
Okay. Any other guesses? 30?
35.
Okay. Okay.
10.
All right. There are research institutes that have done studies that said that the standard time spent with an initial review of a resume. Now, this isn't how long they're going to review your resume before they interview you, but the initial review is 6 seconds, which means we need standard formatting. We need information to be in an order that they're used to seeing it so that they can see your qualifications and decide whether they're going to put you in the we want to interview them pile or the we'll put them off to the side because they still qualify for the job, but we're going to wait on this pile. We want to get you in the we want to interview you pile. I can tell you personally from my own experience, my sorting of initial resumes was very, very quick, and it probably was somewhere in that 6-second range. They also did an eye study where they had reviewers review resumes on a computer, and they watched where eyes went. And eyes went in an F formation. So header, education, first few lines of experience, and then just a brief scan down the bottom. But all of this text in the bottom, about 1 to 2/3 of your resume was hardly even scanned the first time. So this is a good reminder that the format and the order that you have your information in really matters. They're just basically looking in these areas up here and a quick scan down the side for that first review. So let's talk a little bit about a resume. And this is going to be really short, but when you're thinking about resumes, I encourage you to brainstorm and do something called a master resume. Master resume is not what you're going to send out to everyone. This is where you're going to keep every experience, every accomplishment, every job that you've ever had, all of the core competencies that you've developed in this one master document that you can pull experiences and jobs from as you progress through school and through your careers. So after you've created this master resume, then you're going to want to work on the resume that you're actually going to submit to an employer. For undergraduate students, we recommend 1 page maximum. If you go over one page, it's not that it'll be rejected, but very often, I know for me, I almost never looked at the second page. I figured information that was on the second page was the least important, whether it was or wasn't. I didn't even get my attention as I was reviewing applications for making hiring decisions or interview decisions. So really keep it to one page. And then there are three required sections on a resume: the heading, education, and experience. Everything else is optional, and there are many very valuable optional sections in a resume that can include things like the objective, awards and honors, technical skills, languages, special projects, certifications, study abroad. I mean, the list is very, very long. But the three sections that are required are the heading, education, and experience. And especially for you in college or about to graduate and start in the workforce or start graduate school, we really encourage you to have it in that order: heading, education, experience. And then other things can be below that, but these are the three most important screening tools for applicant tracking systems as well. They're going to look to see your name and all that information. They're going to look for your education to make sure that you're qualified, and they're going to look at your experience to make sure that you match up with the requirements of that job description. And so you want those at the very top. All right, format. We have a packet, and I'll send it. I'll actually post it to the announcements on Canvas and send it out to the attendees today. But we have a resume packet that talks about the font, the margins, dates, and locations. Those are all things that you can read in a packet. I'm not going to go over the details today. Then we talk about the experience, and we want your most important experience to be at the top of your resume, least important at the bottom, because again, remember, people are reading in that F. And so we want the most important things to be up in the top 1/3 to 1/2 of your resume. We want your newest experiences at the top and your oldest experiences at the bottom. Now, that may cause you to say, wait a minute, I have something that's like 3 years old, but it's relevant to a job I'm applying for. Well, that's where you can have different experience sections. So you could have a relevant experience if it directly relates to the job that you're doing, and that would pull that older job up towards the top. And then you could have a work experience. So maybe relevant experience, you want to go into veterinary, something in the veterinary field. And maybe you volunteered at a vet clinic, so you could put that at the top. And then maybe you are waitressing at walk-ons, and that's not really relevant to the vet clinic or directly relevant. So you can put that under a work experience. Again, in reverse chronological order, but that moves that relevant experience up towards the top of your resume. So when we're talking about content, the heading's important. You'll see that Hire Me, the name is larger than anything else. And there's an email address, a phone number, and LinkedIn, and that's it. You no longer need to have an address on your resume. Often that's because you're posting your resumes on the internet to job boards. You don't need people to know where you live. Just get your email address, your phone number, and your LinkedIn URL. LinkedIn is really important, both in networking, but also in the job search. And so if you don't have LinkedIn yet, that's something that we can help you with here in the Career Center. I would strongly encourage you to make an appointment, and we can help you figure that out. But your heading, that's all you're going to have. You won't need your address. Then an objective. I will tell you, as somebody who used to do a lot of hiring, often I found that students used objective sections because they didn't feel like they had the content to fill up their resume. And so objective statements ended up being just taking up space so my resume doesn't look blank. Well, guess what? The person reading your resume knows that's what you did. And what I really want to do is encourage you to work with us at the Career Center. We can teach you how to translate these transferable skills or core competencies that you've had into bullet points in your resume that will be much more valuable than just an objective that takes up space. Remember, that's the most important real estate in your resume. And if you're just filling space, that you've wasted that really good real estate. But objectives can be good when you're handing your resume to a recruiter, emailing a resume to a contact, or for including keywords when you are applying for a job online. So this objective has some important components. First of all, it talks about a very specific internship, and this is where you could get some keywords. If you're applying for an internship, you would use the exact words that were used in the job description that's posted online. Then it gives the time. Time is really important, especially for college students when you're thinking about the career fair or talking to recruiters. We wanna make sure that they remember because, again, they're talking to hundreds and sometimes thousands of students. You want them to remember, were you looking for an internship? Were you looking for this summer, this fall? When were you looking? If they can't remember and it's not on your resume, they're gonna move you to the maybe talk to you later pile, and you'll never get a call back. So be specific about the time frame too. And then talk about those core competencies that you want to develop. This person wants to hone leadership skills, but also how are you going to contribute to this company that you're going to work for? You're going to demonstrate strengths in clinical settings. So objectives can be good when they're well written and they're not just fluff taking up space at the top of your resume. And then the next section, education. This is one of those sections that students often make their first really big mistake, and that is abbreviating anything to do with your degree. You never ever abbreviate. So you would never put BS or BA in biological sciences. You would always spell out Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences. Now, that's always been the rule that you spell it all the way out, but now with applicant tracking systems, it's even more important because it reads, if you write BS instead of Bachelor of Science, it's going to read you as not qualified for the Bachelor of Science required for that position and kick you out as not qualified. So make sure that you spell out your degree fully. For when you're going to graduate, you don't have to put expected for a future date. You just put the future date. So this person graduated, well, they already graduated, but if it was in the future, say it said May 2026, we would know that's your expected graduation date. You don't have to put the word. Then you write out Clemson University, Clemson, South Carolina. If you have an emphasis or a minor or anything like that, you can include those. And then if you include your GPA, make sure that you always include the scale. So if your GPA is 3.78, you need to include that it's out of 4.0. And we recommend, it used to be that like in the last 5 years ago, about 70% of employers were looking for GPAs on first year out of college students. And now it's dropped down to 32%. So for those of you whose GPAs maybe aren't quite as high and you wouldn't want to put it on your resume, say if it's below a 3, that's good news. For those of you who have been killing it and are working hard to keep your resume to a 4.0, that may seem disappointing. You can still put it on there, but it's just not as important as it used to be. What's important are those relevant skills, those core competencies, transferable skills that they're going to look in the next section. So we've talked about the heading, we've talked about the education. Let's talk about how are you going to build those experience bullet points. And we start with that with our core competencies. This is one of the best ways that you can write your bullet points or prepare for an interview. And in fact, Clemson's core competencies are what got me to come out of retirement to come work at the Career Center. I'm really passionate about how these can equip you to appear before employers as really well qualified. I always tell people if you can communicate core competencies in your bullet points on your resume, and if you can communicate them in answers in your interview, you would have guaranteed gotten a second interview from me when I was hiring in banking. And so they're just really valuable. And learning how to relate these experiences to the core competencies or your specific experiences to core competencies is a really valuable skill. So keep these in mind as you go through the process. And actually, ChatGPT can help with that as well. We can talk a little bit about that if we have time at the end. So let's talk a little bit about the content. When you're writing your bullet points, I have what I call kind of the magic formula. And you'll see that at the bottom. It's power verb plus quantify or qualify the work that you've done plus the result. And the result is where the magic really is, because most people, when they write bullet points, if they get anything, they typically get the first two. So they start with a power verb like shadowed or observed or logged that you can see on your screen. And then quantifying or qualifying, that's just you giving evidence of the experience that you got. So this person observed autopsies and initiated brain removal and dissection. I mean, very interesting. That's them qualifying what they did. And then you can see in the next bullet point, they quantify what they did because they logged over 150 hours of participation. The reason quantifying and qualifying matters is it tells the employer who's reviewing your resume how much experience do they really have in this. Did this person shadow the medical examiner for 1 week? No, they shadowed them for 20. So I know they got 20 weeks of information. Did they log 10 hours of participation? No, they logged 150 hours. So I know they actually got some significant experience. That's where the power of quantifying and qualifying comes in. And then the result, and the result can be for you or for the company. And so, thinking here in their second bullet point, this person says that they exercise critical thinking skills when studying criminal cases. So, we know that they've developed their critical thinking skills, which, of course, is one of the core competencies of being able to analyze information and synthesize information. And then also documenting internship experiences. I'm terrible at documentation. I'm a people person. I want to teach people how to do things, but the documenting behind the scenes, I'm terrible at it. That's an actual skill that's valuable to employers. And so you don't want to forget to include those things. So the magic formula, power verb, quantify, qualify, and the result. As much as possible, if you can do that for every single bullet point, that's really helpful. This person in their resume did it combined through three bullet points, which actually worked fine. It worked well. But as much as possible, I encourage you to do it with each bullet point. Okay, so now let's talk about AI and the impact it's having on resumes. Well, I already kind of gave it away earlier, so I won't do a quiz again. 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using applicant tracking systems to pre-screen applications. So your format and your content really, really matter. What that does is it sets a higher bar for resumes. But I don't want you to hear me say it sets a higher bar and panic. Like, for all of you who said you think your resume is a 1 or a 2 or a 3, getting you to a 4 or a 5 is really not hard. You can come and meet with the counselors here, and we can show you how to get to a 4 or a 5 ranked resume. So I don't want you to read that it's going to set a higher bar and you're thinking, I can't even reach that bar. You can. Just come work with us. We'll help you with that. So Chat GPT or other generative AIs, I mean, there's Bard, there's all kinds of different AIs, but Chat GPT is by far the one that's most commonly used. And that's what we here at the center use to teach you how to use AI ethically. What ChatGPT can do is it can make optimizing and tailoring faster and easier. It's going to keep you competitive in the job market. And think about this, it's going to help you develop the core competencies of technology and integrity and ethics. You learning when it's appropriate to use AI and when it's not appropriate, and understanding the best way to use AI is really developing those core competencies and skills. And there may even be an opportunity for you to include that on your resume. I want to take a pause for just a minute to see if we have any questions, and you can feel free to drop questions into the chat as well. And we'll cover questions at the end, but I just want to take a quick pause before I dive a little more into the AI content. Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So, things to avoid when you are trying to optimize your resume for AI are columns. Artificial intelligence applicant tracking systems read from top to bottom, left to right without any discernment or distinguishing if there are columns. And so if you have a column of discrete different information over here and a column of different information over here, the AI is going to read and they're going to combine those columns and it's going to come across as nonsense. And you're going to end up getting your resume rejected from human review because you didn't even pass that initial threshold screening. So let's avoid columns. Graphics. Graphics can include, pictures, our graphic comm, if there are any graphic comm students on here, I know you guys love having graphics on your resume. And again, there are times where that might be appropriate, but if it's going to go through an applicant tracking system, that can be problematic. So you want to avoid graphics. You want to avoid repeating verbs. So I told you earlier that the formula for bullet points is power verb, quantify, qualify, and result. But we want you to use a different verb every time. Now, there's a hack for that. We have a resume packet that lists a lot of verbs, but you can also right-click with your mouse and pull up synonyms. But you want to avoid repeating any verbs. You also want to avoid using creative headers. And I'm going to show you an example of that in the next slide. But we want you to stick with just plain old boring headers like work experience, relevant experience, education. I don't want you trying to make your resume stand out and be different in this day and age because it's just, again, the applicant tracking system's not going to be able to read it as well. We also want you to avoid acronyms and abbreviations anytime that it's possible. And that even includes industry standard abbreviations. So if you're in an industry in banking, we used so many abbreviations. You had to have your own glossary to figure it out. But I want you to spell it out at least one time in your resume before you start using acronyms and abbreviations, and never use acronyms or abbreviations in your education section. And then we also don't want you to use periods at the end of your bullet point statements. And I wish that I knew the specific reason why, but there's something in the coding in applicant tracking systems that anytime it reads a period, it devalues your score. So, and this is not new as far as advice for resumes. We tell you you don't need periods at the end of your bullet point statements, but it's newly important because applicant tracking systems are programmed to see periods and see that as a problem. So just don't put periods at the end of your bullet point statements.
Maggie, we have a
But,
question real
oh,
quick. Sorry to
yes.
interrupt. Would graphics include a QR code?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you have a QR code, I would encourage you to put it at the very top or the very bottom, but not somewhere where it's interfering with reading text and perhaps reading that as a textual error. So very good question. So for right now, where we are, QR code at the top somewhere or at the bottom, but not anywhere in the middle. Thanks for asking that question. Okay. So you can see an example here. Hire Me has a resume, and this is a little bit different format than what we recommend, but it's still quick and easy to read. We've got the education, relevant skills, experience in reverse chronological order versus poor Kimberly Kardashian here. She has some really unique headers. Instead of her education, she put smarts. Instead of her skills, she put clout, and instead of her experience, she put moneymaker. And that just is not, that's not going to fly through an applicant tracking system. Now, Kim Kardashian, she doesn't need to submit her resume to anybody. Everybody knows who she is. And, but for you, don't use those kinds of creative headers. Okay, so let's move on to then how to optimize your resume using ChatGPT. Again, a reminder, we want your headers to be standard. We want you to use keywords from the job description. We want you tailoring your bullet points to the job description, and you can use AI, ChatGPT or others. I am very experienced with ChatGPT. I don't have as much experience with the others, so we're going to focus on ChatGPT today. So when you are using ChatGPT, It starts with a prompt, and I'm trying to remember because we had a whole bunch of people who were at the 1 or 2 level with experience with ChatGPT. ChatGPT starts with a prompt, and a prompt is basically instructions for what you're hoping to accomplish, okay? When you're prompting, we don't want you entering personal information into the chat. Here's how I would describe ChatGPT and AI in general right now. It's the wild, wild west. Information is king, and any information that they gather from you, they are going to use. Okay. There is a way for you to choose in ChatGPT for it not to remember the information that you enter into it, but also you can just remove your personal identifying information from the header of your resume, and then it's not linked directly to you. So, prompt, when you enter your prompt, we want you removing any personal information. Then, once you've prompted, you're going to review your results. And remember, we're all used to Googling, right? Where you ask a question and it spits out the answer. But ChatGPT, how you use it is in the name. It's chat. You're actually going to go back and forth with ChatGPT until you get the ideal response. And you won't really know what an ideal response is until you've played around with it a little bit. So I'm going to, again, encourage you, just play around with it a little bit. And then you're going to, like I said, refine or chat with it. So you're going to prompt. Now, using your resume, say you have gone on Clemson Job Link and you found an internship that you're interested in. You're going to give ChatGPT a prompt like optimize the following resume for the following job description. And that's going to be a great first prompt. You're just giving it context. Optimize the following resume with the following job description. Now, this is where I need to pause and say that using AI ethically means multiple things. The first one is it's always your responsibility to review the information that ChatGPT or whatever form that you're using gives you, because they can hallucinate or make up information. And you definitely do not want information on your resume that's not true about you or relevant. So it's your responsibility to review it. Don't just cut and paste what ChatGPT spit out, put it in a resume, and send it on. This is where your work, you need to review and make sure that it's good. The other thing that you want to do is make sure that when you're using AI, that not just that you've reviewed that information, but that it is accurate and true, and that you never use AI to exaggerate what you've done. It's going to be so tempting to try and make yourself sound better than you really are, but please don't. That will come out in an interview room when they're asking you questions and you can't answer something that was a bullet point on your resume. That's just going to guarantee that you don't get the job. So please, please, please don't do that. Okay, so we're going to prompt, we're going to review the results, and we might refine. So I'm going to attempt to do a live demo, and I'm going to give a prompt, a resume, a job description, and we're going to see what answer comes out of that. So give me just a moment to switch screens. Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody can see. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see my ChatGPT screen right now. My screen is so small. I think it's there. Okay, great. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, so I've been using ChatGPT for a really long time, since it first became public. And so I have trained ChatGPT to write things in my voice and to respond to things. But one thing that's new, you're going to see on my screen, memory updated. One thing that ChatGPT can do now is it can remember instructions across different chats. I'm going to just scroll over here. You can see I have lots and lots and lots of chats, right? Like all kinds of chats. I use it daily, multiple times a day. It can remember the instructions that I've given it across multiple chats. So one of the first things that I'm going to encourage you to do is to give it a prompt somewhere along these lines. And basically, these are all the instructions that I just went through with you. So I uploaded our sample resume and Clemson's 9 core competencies. And I'll send you this document so you can have this. And then I said to ChatGPT, each time I request a resume, use the format from the attached document. Also use the formula power verb, quantify and or qualify the work done, plus the result for the company and or the individual. Incorporate the core competencies that are attached into bullet points where possible. So I've given it pretty specific instructions. So now what I'm going to do, if I can, sorry, I am going to upload a resume where the information is scrubbed. So and I always say please. I mean, you don't have to, but my mom raised me to say please. And even though this is a chat bot, I still say please. You don't have to, but I do. Using the following resume and job description, please optimize my resume. And then I'm just going to put a colon and I'm going to drop in all the information from a resume. This is just a random student resume from years ago that I took out phone, email, and LinkedIn and their information, and I just put generic information. I changed the title of where they worked and things like that. And then I'm going to go to Clemson Job Link, and I'm going to pull up a job description. Let's see. Let's go to, sorry, I got kicked out. Sorry, I must have gotten kicked out. Let's try it again. The challenges of a live demo. Okay, I'm going to go a little more generic. Let's go back and change my prompt since I'm having trouble logging in. Use following resume. Please optimize. And then I'm just going to give it a job title, it to an intern position at an insurance company. All right, so let's see. So you'll see that it's doing all of the things that I told you earlier with format. It's grabbed some relevant experience to get it to the top. It's bolded where, and you don't need to bold this in your resume, but it's bolded to show me that it's using different resume, different verbs for each of the beginning bullet statements. The one thing that I notice is it put periods at the end. Okay. And because I just told you, you don't want periods at the end, let me pull this over because I think that's harder to see. Okay. So when I look at this is my first prompt was to optimize it. And it looks pretty good to me, but I'm noticing that there are periods. So I'm just going to say, please reproduce Oh, I'm shouting at it. Let's not use all capitals. Please reproduce. I can't type and instruct. Hating all periods from bullet points. And so you'll see this happens so fast. So this is the thing where once you get your resume in a really good format, you could very quickly customize your resume for each job that you're applying for. And again, when you have the job description listed in there specifically, it's going to pull out keywords and integrate them into your bullet points. But that's again where you need to be responsible for making sure that those keywords that it integrated are true for you. Okay, so I've given you a live demo and you saw how fast that happened. It was like 5 seconds to produce an entire resume. But there are a couple of things I want to note. Number one, I already had a resume written. So maybe you're thinking, I don't even know where to start with a resume. Well, here's one way you could start. Let's do a new chat and say, give me a sample resume for a junior psychology major at Clemson University. Now you're going to see, remember, it's already breaking some of those rules. So it didn't actually take my full format. So you're going to change your format, but it's already starting to use those formatting things that I told you are important, right? It's getting experience in there. It's not using periods. It's using distinct verbs at the beginning of each statement. So this can help you get over that blank screen syndrome of, I don't even know what to write or how to write it. This can give you some suggestions. Again, you wouldn't copy this and paste this to your resume because this isn't your experience. You could also say, I have experience as a server at a restaurant. Help me write bullet points. Using the formula power verb plus quantify qualify plus result. Now, your results are going to be different, right? This is just giving you an example, but this can help you get over that blank screen syndrome. So say you worked at a restaurant and you resolved customer complaints quickly. Now you can see like specific examples of words that you could use, but you only use them if they're true for you. And again, these can just be a starting point to help you get over that blank screen syndrome. If you already have your resume and already have your resume bullet points written, you can put them in and ask them to be optimized. Okay, so let me just pause here and say, what questions do we have so far? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I see one.
If you're applying to grad school, can we mention that in place of a job description?
Yes, yes. So if you were applying to grad school, you would use a prompt, please optimize my resume for application to grad school at, and then wherever you're applying, the program that you're applying to.
And then the other, can it create a document where it all fits on one page?
Yes. So one of the things that you can do is once you've chatted back and forth with ChatGPT, if it's going over one page, or if you already have a resume that's more than one page, I would encourage you to input the resume information without your personal information and the job description and ask it to edit it down to one page. And again, it's going to take the most important information for you and match up keywords with that job description. But again, you have to review and make sure that it didn't eliminate something that actually is really relevant. But yes, you could use it for that. Any other questions?
I don't see any more.
Okay. Oh, I just had one pop up. What if we want to get an internship but have irrelevant work experience related to it? Okay, that's a great question. So earlier when we were talking about core competencies, a couple things to know. When you're looking for an internship, employers know often that you are a college student with limited experience. And so there aren't going to be these super high expectations often that you are a perfect match. But if you can communicate where you have developed some core competencies that will enable you to do the requirements of that internship, that's where you can really show them that you are qualified for that position. And one of the things that you can do is, again, looking through those core competencies and thinking about the work that you've done that relates to what you might do. So, for example, say you wanted to get an internship in an insurance office. Maybe you're in business, but you don't have um, any insurance experience at all. Well, think about what you would be doing at an insurance office. You'd probably be answering the phone. You'd probably be greeting customers when they walk in. You'd probably be documenting, emailing, things like that. So again, you don't have to have direct insurance experience, but do you have customer service skills that will really translate to that position? And so think about the experience that you've developed. And say you don't necessarily have work experience with customer service skills. Well, have you worked on a project on a team where you supported the work of the team? It's really thinking beyond just the specific job and what skills have you developed, both in your work, but also in your schooling and even in your volunteering that would contribute to your success in that role and to the success of the business. And then if you have specific questions about how can I translate my skills for an internship, definitely reach out to us. We'd be glad to do a virtual drop-in, a virtual appointment, or an in-person appointment for you. Okay, any other questions? If not, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here today. And just remember, AI is changing very, very rapidly. And all you can do is just the best you can do today. You don't have to be on top of every single thing. We're here to support and encourage you. If AI is something that causes you a great deal of anxiety, it's okay. You took a first step today to learning some of the fundamentals. I think I'm getting a sense from our poll today, that a beginner's even how to sign up for ChatGPT and just basics and prompting might be a good workshop for us to host. But if you also have suggestions for workshops, you could reach out to us. We'd be glad to consider them. But I want to thank you for being here today and remind you to please make sure that you go and complete, if you're doing the professional development certificate program, to please make sure you go complete your reflection. Typically, in all the other workshops, you've had until the end of the day to do it, but I just extended it out. You have until July 31st to complete your reflection. But let me just encourage you, go do it today while it's fresh on your mind. And then if you are doing that program and have missed some of the webinars, They have all been posted, and you can go back and watch them, and I've reopened the reflections so you can do those as well. If you are joining us today and you're not part of the Professional Development Certificate Program, we're glad you're here as well. But thank you for being here, and I wish you all the very best of luck. Do not forget that you can come back to the Career Center, and we would love to help you with resumes, help you with AI, help you with cover letters, grad school, all of those things. So thank you all. I see your thank yous in the comments, and I'm glad you're here. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.